Welcome to the Local Business Show. Seth Green is a nationally recognized marketer who is the nation's foremost authority on growing local businesses through direct response marketing podcasts, and the only person to be nominated 3 times for the GKIC Dan Kennedy Marketer of the Year Award. Seth will be joined by a capable cohort of co-hosts who are each local business marketing experts in their own right. On the podcast, Seth and his co-hosts brings together small business owners and other local business authorities to share with you their inspiring stories of how they started their local business, how they serve their local business clients, how they grow their local business, and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Seth Green.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Ostroff. I work with Les's team at Umbrella Local, and we have a special guest today, and she is Tatiana Tsoir. Hi, Tatiana.
Hey, Jeff.
I would love to have you speak a little bit about yourself, about where you are now, where your business is, and also in this initial interview conversation that we're having, if you could let people know how you got involved in the business that you're in, which is accounting.
Well, accounting is only one of my businesses.
Oh, that's right. You do a lot of things. That's right.
Not too many, so not a jack of all trades, but I actually wanted to be a lawyer since I was 14. And I went to law school in another country for 2 years out of 5. It's a 5-year program. And then I came to the United States, and when I transferred into bachelor's, obviously law school is a graduate degree in the US. So I figured, okay, I need to finish bachelor's first and then move into law school. So as I was choosing the major to major in for my undergrad degree, I thought, I needed to support myself financially. And I thought which major would give me an opportunity to do that without any other special skills and actually make more than, let's say, working as an admin or whatever. And so I picked accounting. And then my college, which is interesting, my college actually was kind of brainwashing us. Professors in the accounting program were brainwashing us, quote unquote, and saying, if you're majoring in accounting, you might as well sit for the CPA exam. And I thought, maybe they're right. So I did.
Okay.
and kind of fell in love with accounting along the way, got into taxes, been working as a bookkeeper. And today I have a boutique tax firm in New York, work with clients all over the country. And I also am a pivot coach for moms, and I train them to be bookkeepers or just start their own businesses. And
wow, that is fantastic. And I must say, I don't know where you came from, but your English is wonderful. And you sound like you grew up in Philadelphia, where I'm from. So that's wonderful. Now, how long have you actually been in the practice of accounting, Tatiana?
16 years.
16 years now. Excellent. Let's get sort of into the nitty gritty. Why would people want to work with you, Tatiana? We're just talking now about the accounting. I know you do these other things. You alluded to one. Why would they want to work with you? Why choose you over competition?
Well, to be honest with you, there really is no competition. And the reason is that it's going to be a little bit of a long answer to your question, but okay. I want to make a point. So there are 2, let me back up for a second and start at the beginning. There are 2 accounting models, so to speak. And one of those accounting models is a traditional one, which is what we've been used to, for decades. Americans have had this model for 3 or 4 decades. And that model is take on as many clients as possible because technology allows you to streamline the tax processing process, tax return processing. And basically, to make a decent living for an accountant, you have to take on 3 to 4 to 500 clients then you meet with that client potentially once a year, maybe a couple of times a year, but during tax season, it's really not. And what that resulted in is commoditization of accounting service. So accountants stopped being advisors and became transactional operators. I've been that way. I've learned from a firm that's that way, and I've been that way for 6 years of my practice. Then I saw that my business was growing, that I was busier and busier, very busy during tax season, but my bank account didn't grow proportionately. So I also have a family, I have kids, and I realized that, I want to do better. I want to work less and make more. And honestly, the underlying driver there is also serving clients in a better capacity, because if you are a client of a firm, of a traditional firm, you're one of the 300 or 400 people. Do you think that an accountant really has the time to sit down and think, okay, for this person, knowing this, and this about them, how can I help them? How can I allow them to pay less taxes? How can I help them be more efficient? There's just simply no time for that. So we've gotten into this model of selling time for money, and it's been like that. And now the receiving side of this transaction, the clients, the small businesses, think that an accountant can be or should be judged based on the refund amount that you receive. So I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So in 2018, I actually participated in a contest by Intuit. Intuit is one of the largest software providers for small businesses. They had a contest called Firm of the Future, and I made it to the top 15 across the globe. So there were 3 firms from each of the 5 countries, and my firm was one of them. And that really prompted me to understand, okay, I have something to share. I have a skill. I have something that is much more than just an accounting, once a year tax return. So because of that, I went into coaching. I got coached to be more efficient, to create systems in my business, to also learn how to delegate. And I also got coached in tax planning. And that's how I became a new generation firm, which there's maybe 2,000 of firms in the US that are of that level. And what we focus on is not putting numbers in your tax return, because honestly, that will be replaced by artificial intelligence in the next decade. So there's no really value in that. The value is in helping you proactively lower your taxes, actually create mechanisms to pay less tax legally using strategies that have gone through the tax court. So right now in my practice, and why clients should hire me, is because I actually have a pretty big toolbox of things like tax planning. So we start with analyzing where you are, creating strategies to save you money on tax proactively. We work with you throughout the year, not when the year is over and there's nothing you can do about it. So we save money on tax, then we help you build a profitable business, save you money on tax, and then I help you invest that money. I partnered with a financial wealth management company to multiply those savings as well.
I am very impressed by what you said. For one thing, I like that you're looking ahead and thinking about where the tax preparation business is going. And you mentioned AI. What I'm also impressed by, Tatiana, is what I perceive to be customization of your service. And that sounds like a real difference compared to what a lot of the other mass market firms have to offer. If I could just have you comment on a couple of other things. One would be, where exactly is your practice located? And the second would be, who would be your ideal client? What kind of businesses would you work best with, or are you working best with right now?
So I'm located in Westchester, New York, and I work with clients all over the country. So the client's location doesn't matter. But my ideal client is a business owner, someone who has control over how money is earned and how it's spent. Because that's, the US tax code has been developed over decades and decades and has grown into this monster, but also it's impossible to say, well, let's just do 13% across the board for everyone. That doesn't work like that, because the American economy for years, for decades, has been stimulating small businesses. And 80%, I believe 80% of employers, or definitely more than half of employers in the country, are small businesses, mom and pop shops. For me, the ideal client is a small business, because that's where most of the tax provisions are available, and many of them are not even known to some of the most prominent accountants, simply because there's no time to apply them to one of your 400 clients.
It reminds me too, when I listen to you, I spent a lot of time in healthcare in my career. And it's almost like what has happened with doctors in medicine. They've got too many patients. And so you have these boutique doctors. That's what this reminds me of. Thank you for sharing that. What are some of the most common mistakes, Tatiana, that you would say people make, small business owners, such as you're talking about, make, that they bring to you? And again, in tandem with that, if you could share one tip that you would offer to these people, these small businesses, the people who come to you to help them, what would it be?
The most common mistakes, actually, that's the reason for the book, is I just got heartbroken too many times with people who come to me when they can finally afford an advisor like me, would be all of the things that are outlined in my book. So choosing the right entity so that you can pay less tax and also potentially pay less tax in the future. Pricing better so that your price doesn't depend on your competitor or doesn't depend on anything else that maybe is out of the blue, so that you can learn to manage your cash better. Oftentimes what I've noticed, and that's what prompted me to write this specific book, was that people would not have the budget for someone like me, but they would actually need the expertise of someone like me. The earlier, the better. So I wanted to breach that gap and wrote the book to give someone a roadmap. This is how you start, so that you can get to someone like me quicker, grow your business, and build a life that you want. And typically, I mean, there's quite a few mistakes, but that are more kind of high level, at least in my mind they are. But we even can talk about simple things like just preparing the return correctly. Most of the tax returns that I get into review in my practice from prospective clients have some mistakes, some questions unanswered, or some questions not answered correctly. And we forget that, every question on the tax return, every answer that you submit is your responsibility as a client. You're making an assertion to the government, and you can be called on to really answer and confirm that assertion. So that's just the simplest one. The bigger one is not utilizing the entity structures correctly. Typically, and I see this all the time, typically people say, well, what should I be? Should I be an S Corp? Should I be a partnership? Should I be an LLC? What's the deal? And typically people just Google it and find some answer in some forum because they don't want to invest a little bit of money. We're not talking about a large sum to determine what the right entity for you is. Or they think, if I have an S Corp, I'm going to have a separate filing, so I'll have to pay for it. Yes, but you'll be saving on self-employment taxes along the way. So, and also many accountants, especially traditional model accountants, think of it as one entity. I prefer, for at least my clients, to look at it from how many entities do we need to get us the savings, to make it legal, to make it most tax efficient. So each entity has a business purpose that's real. So I don't look at it as just like, I should be an S Corp or an LLC. No, I look at it as, what can we do to make sure that you get to your goals while saving money on tax along the way?
Okay, so it sounds like you try to look at the big picture and see what works best for that client in that situation. I would be remiss if I didn't have you say a few words about your book. You referenced it. It is relevant here. Can you tell everybody the name of your book and just the essence of the book? We won't dwell on that here. They can find out more and we'll tell them how. Please say a few words about that, Tatiana.
So the book is called Dream Bold, Start Smart. And I wanted to encourage people who are dreamers, because one of my clients, one of my best clients said, Tatiana, accountants don't start businesses, visionaries do. And the reason is that accountants usually, when we think about business, run the numbers and we think, it's not worth it. We don't want to even put an effort into it, right? Visionaries start a business based on that vision. And usually numbers, money, taxes all come secondary if it's even in the picture. Oftentimes it's set aside and never touched. So I wanted to give dreamers power to start better. I wanted to make my expertise available to those who have a dream, who have a vision of making money and doing what they love. And that's what this book is for. The purpose is to provide you a roadmap whether you're setting up a side gig or side hustle, or you want to build a business, or you just want to have something that's yours, this book is for you to guide you through the world of money, numbers, and taxes in plain English.
Okay, that part's very important. Coming from an accountant, some people might think, I'm not going to understand this. It's all about ledgers. One of the things I know that's very important to you in your business, from what you've said and what I've read about you, is you like this to make people feel empowered. And I think you want to work with entrepreneurs, as you're talking about here, with their big dreams. Can you just talk a little bit more maybe about an experience or two that you've had with an individual or couple of individuals who were launching a business and you kind of guided them along?
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of stories like that in the book. That's the reason that the book content came easier, because I've already had, 15 years of experience by then.
Sure.
And client stories and anecdotes and stuff. So there are my friends and also clients, but they came to me once for consultation and they were asking about this platform that they wanted to build, an online platform connecting liquor distributors to liquor stores to liquor importers, so that to skip the middleman kind of.
Wow.
And I asked them a couple of questions, like, because they had experience in the liquor industry. And I asked them a couple of questions about their business model, like who's going to pay for your service? Whom are you going to charge and how much? And they couldn't answer that. So a simple question like that, they kind of walked away scratching their heads. So
Yeah.
they actually ended up opening a wine store in the area. And it's been a very successful wine store. And they specialize on wines that are sustainably or organically or both produced, and with wines with interesting stories behind them and stuff. So that's just one of the examples. But there are tons of stories of people who are carried away by their vision, that they don't pay attention to the numbers and don't read the signs. I've got a ton of those too.
Yes, I'll bet. And those stories, I'm sure, are very interesting because they really are so much easier to grasp than just reading words. The anecdotes are wonderful. And if you've got them in the book, that's wonderful. That'll make things much more understandable and enjoyable for the reader. Now, let's take a look, Tatiana, at a little different angle, which is, with all the success you've achieved, and I think you've achieved a lot for the 16 plus years, especially coming from another country, what would you say is your biggest challenge at this particular time?
The biggest challenge actually is, believe it or not, letting go of control.
Okay. Well, you've got the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And accountants by nature are often control freaks.
Interesting.
Introverts. That's if you're a good accountant, you're most likely an introvert and most likely a control freak as well. So
I don't see you as an introvert, by the way.
I'm an introverted extrovert. So
Okay.
I like talking to people, but I also like my own time.
I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the challenge. So letting go, delegating. I have my entire adult life, I've been committed to excellence. I think that excellence is a choice, and so is mediocrity. And when I take something on, I do it 100%. I don't half-ass things. And that's kind of why letting go of control is hard, because in accounting and bookkeeping and tax, sometimes mistakes don't manifest themselves until months or years down the road. So it's really hard to be sure in someone else's skill when it comes to, doing the work like bookkeeping or tax preparation or whatever.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I was a supervisor years ago. I only had 2 guys that I supervised. I consider myself to be a pretty good writer. I had a very difficult time letting the other guys write. And as I look back on it now, I should have lightened up a little bit on it. But one guy in particular would send me stuff. I basically rewrite it because it had to be what I wanted, and that it wasn't a good thing to do. So I understand this business about control. How about advice? What's the best advice you ever have gotten? in it. You talked about one mentor or somebody. I don't know if that would be the best advice, but it doesn't even have to be business, but it may be. What would you say is the best advice that you've gotten that served you well?
I've been very fortunate with teachers, and I don't necessarily mean teachers as in academic instructors, that too, but also teachers in life. But the best advice that I've ever received was to leave yourself choice for later. So when you make a choice today, let's say you burn the bridges or, the bridge or whatever, when you leave a company, you hate everybody kind of thing.
Yes.
You're very inclined to burn the bridge. And
yes.
I learned that I was told that, never burn the bridge, always leave on good terms and always leave yourself a choice for later, because I've had situations where I would have to go back to the company and ask for, let's say, a letter of recommendation for something. And if I burned the bridge before that, I would have not been able to go there with a straight face. So just in general, approaching life with, if you're making a choice today, make sure that you have a choice later. And that's actually the reason that I chose accounting as my major, because I was choosing between graduating with 24 credits with a degree in economics and spending another year in school, because accounting is 60 credits. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to make the best of the bachelor's degree, even though I was completely cold to accounting. I was like, it's not for me. It's not my thing and stuff. So I chose accounting because I thought, economics is a part of the accounting major. So I can always not use it later if I want to, but it's going to be there for me. And I'm so happy that I did that. That's the best advice that I've ever received.
Wow, that's terrific. And I think a lot of people would see that as being great advice. If we carry that a step forward, Tatiana, what advice would you give to somebody who would be considering a career in accounting?
Do it.
Do it. But is it right for everybody? I mean, that would be part of it, right? How did somebody know? You didn't think it was right for you initially, and you love it now. What kind of qualities do you think somebody should have now that you've been doing this for quite a long time?
So when you're potentially considering accounting, I think that my personal opinion, and it's true, it's been true for over 10 years, I think that everyone should get an accounting minor or a double major, just because accounting is such a valuable skill. It's not just knowledge like philosophy or history or economics for that matter. It's a skill. You can actually do something with it. You can do someone's books. You can analyze your financial statements for your business. Doctors, lawyers, everyone needs to learn some basics. And that's why MBA program has been such a success, around the world, because they teach you basics of accounting. They teach you how to read financial statements. And if you can read GM's financial statements, you can read your own little business's financial statements as well and make decisions. So I think that accounting is a skill that everyone needs, some basics at least. So it's not, working in accounting is another story. It's another path, but learning it is definitely a benefit for everyone. Now, kind of pursuing the career in accounting is, like I said, is different. You have to have the personality for it. You have to be interested in it. But I also feel like when you know something really well, you start liking it, you start enjoying it. And that's what happened to me.
I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, accounting as a career is not for everyone. It's more for people who love to work independently. I feel that have no trouble focusing, that don't necessarily love customer service. Although I feel that customer service becomes a bigger part of your business if it's your business. There's definitely always opportunity in accounting. Even during downtimes in the economy, 2008, when I graduated, nobody was hiring. So I took a year off. I kept some of my bookkeeping clients, passed the CPA exam, and then got hired by a tax firm. Even during the economic downturns, you could still make money. You can still earn a living. And it's something I think is perfect for moms, because especially bookkeeping side of it, because you can work whenever you want. And that's kind of how I sustained my business for a few years when I just became a mom and I didn't want to work full time for someone else.
I think what you've just said there is great. You've indicated that really understanding basic accounting is a practical skill that anybody could benefit from learning. And I wish learning. And I wish that young children or kids in high school all had to take some accounting course. And you probably too feel that way as well, because it's just very beneficial.
Yeah.
And then the ability of an accountant to work independently. And I would also add, I have known accountants who work into their 70s and 80s. It seems like you can work forever as an accountant. So that would probably be another benefit. And hopefully you'll be working many, many years in accounting. One quick question, it's not necessarily a quick question, but I don't want you to spend too much time on it. But you mentioned the issue about knowing how to delegate. I was not great at that. I understand it. You talked about you work with somebody in finance, because probably investing, maybe it was, because that may not be your strength. Are there any other areas where you have recognized, I know these things, but I would prefer to delegate or collaborate with people in these skill sets? Anything that comes to mind besides the guy or woman who handles investments?
Retirement accounts. So we are, as accountants, we know the types of retirement accounts. We also know some of the rules. What I often am faced with is a retirement person bouncing it back to me and saying, well, you're the accountant, you tell me what to do, kind of. And it's fine, because we are telling the person how much their maximum contribution is or what type of account they can create. But I am not a pension professional, and I can't necessarily say, well, this retirement document allows for this and this. I'm looking for you to tell me what is allowed and what's not. That's really what your job is. But oftentimes that doesn't happen. And I really feel like I need better support on that side of things.
Sure. Okay. Now, as we're heading toward the last part of our conversation, I like to think of this as really more of a conversation than an interview. What I would like you to do is share a little bit more about yourself so people get to know a little bit more about Tatiana. So let me ask you, I see you've got a wonderful sign behind you. Never underestimate the power of a girl with a book. So does that mean to suggest that you are a reader, you have a podcast? I guess I'm sure you have some hobbies. Can you just let the audience hear a little bit more about Tatiana besides the business, accounting, finance person?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm actually very passionate about everything that I do, whether it's work. I think it comes from commitment to myself and also commitment to excellence in general. But I love skiing, ice skating. We love sports with the family and just recreation in general. I also am a huge fan of ballroom dancing. I was fortunate. I grew up in a school, high school, where we had mandatory ballroom dancing for 2 years, twice a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrific. I wish I would have had that. Okay.
Right. So I really got to love dancing, and I got my husband into it. So we took lessons before we had kids. Really enjoy the salsa, the cha-cha and stuff. So yeah, and it's something that you can tell just by talking to me about.
The dancing accountant.
Yep. I love reading books, good business books that really are life-changing. And that's really what I look for. And that's what I strived for when I wrote my book. I want my book to change someone's life. So that sign applies both ways, as a reader and as a writer. And I also am a wine enthusiast. I mean, these guys that I talked about that opened up their wine store, they always recommend something new. They talk about this wine that was... the winery is owned by a woman, and she's committed to, let's say, no pesticides in the wine or whatever, or another wine. So I really love those stories, and stories really do change our life. So even when it comes to something as simple as wine.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of interest. Can you say a few words, please, about your podcast?
Sure. So my podcast is for dreamers. I think that stories and people's experiences is what really helps us take the leap. So I interview folks that have been in business for some time, who've taken a leap, whether it's from corporate or from motherhood, full-time motherhood, or whatever, taking a leap into starting something of their own and pursuing their dream and the lessons they learn along the way. And I really enjoy the conversations, and I hope that my listeners enjoy them too.
Well, that's such a great fit with your overall mission. The podcast dovetails perfectly with it. It really does. You mentioned your family, okay? You mentioned the secret word. You said children. How many? How old?
2 kids, almost 9 and almost 6.
Okay.
Yeah, a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl.
Yeah, so one of each. They're really fun. We're really, I got lucky in life with a spouse. My husband is driven by family time, which I really value. So he values family time much more than he does career accomplishments. And even though he's very accomplished in his career, he really makes a lot of time for the family. So I feel really fortunate.
That is something to be feel fortunate about. And your children will benefit from that as they get older, because it's so important, especially in those formative years, to feel that you've got mom and dad there for you and loving you. I speak as the father of 31-year-old twins, soon to be 32. Now, last few questions, and then we want people to find out how they can get a hold of you. One question is there any particular cause? I guess I'm thinking more about a nonprofit or an organization that's nonprofit that might be near and dear to you, or at least one that you, if you were going to donate or contribute your time to, you would? If so, could you speak about that, please?
Sure, absolutely. And that cause is actually, it's interesting. We were in Aruba, I think it was, and there was a store selling some stuff. And at the end of the transaction, they asked me, there is a change left, or whatever, rounding up or rounding down. Would you like to donate it into each cause? And they had 3 causes. And one of them, the last one, was for abused women and relationships. And I donated to that because when I came to the US, I got into an abusive relationship, and I know how hard it is to get out of it. So that cause is near and dear to my heart.
Wow, and it's understandable, and I'm glad that you're okay, and you've gone way beyond that. Thank goodness for that. Is there anything else that you would want to share with our audience, Tatiana? This could be about your personal life. It could be about what you're doing with your accounting practice and those other associated businesses, your podcast, your book, anything else that you want to share.
I would love to inspire people, and my book hopefully will inspire more businesses. But I think that it's important for us as women, when we become mothers, we are completely changed as people and human beings. And many of us look for something that's just theirs. And because we share our life so much with the kids, and it probably applies to dads too. I'm not a dad, so it's hard for me to say.
I know.
So
we won't hold that against you. We won't hold that against you.
So basically, I feel that it's important to follow your dream, but do it in a smart way. And when I'm facing a challenge, I usually go in, what's the expression, head on?
Head first.
Yeah. And I think that it's important for those who are looking to start something of their own to explore their passion to do the same when it comes to the financial side of things that often gets overlooked. That is my true passion. I'm also very passionate about gadgets, Apple gadgets specifically.
Okay.
I love my iMac, love my headphones and phone and stuff. So yeah, I'm totally passionate about everything that I do. But I think that an important part of my life is commitment. So whatever I do, I commit to it. And I think that that's a component that many folks are missing, especially artists. It's common to think that life of an artist is life of poverty, but it's actually not true. When you commit to your art, there's a number of ways to make a great living with art. So I think that commitment is the key word there.
Yes. And I must say, it's been fascinating to speak with you because you are almost what I might say is an oxymoron, and forgive me for saying this, but you are a visionary accountant. I think that's distinctive, that you see the bigger picture and you are looking forward because you see AI, you know what AI is about. You're probably familiar with blockchain technology and you know what's coming ahead, right? You're aware of that. And I think having those perspectives, having that vision would certainly, in my opinion, make you stand out as somebody who would be a very good person to do business with if I was in a small business. I really mean that. Let's close by asking you, so how can our audience find you, find out more about your practice, the services you provide? If you want to mention the book, the podcast, this is your chance.
So you can find out all of that, at talktotatiana.com. There is a link to my practice. There's a link to my book. There's a link to my podcast. So it's the best way to connect. And there's also a little resource that you can download for free.
That's great. I would like you to clarify. So everybody, it's talk, TOTATIANA.com.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Tatiana, this has been great. And I think those who get to watch this are going to really appreciate what you bring to the table. And hopefully there are going to be a lot of small business people seeking you out. So thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.